So another actually pretty estrogenic food besides, I mean, soy can sort of cover, beans, legumes in general, but you also have alcohol, which is a pretty big one. And it's estrogenic in the sense of the effects that it has on the intestine and on the liver,
Right.
by increasing endotoxin and then damaging the ability of the liver to detoxify things. So alcohol is like alcohol sort of goes hand in hand with endotoxin and the metabolites that it produces when it's being detoxified, and it's just like a pretty potent liver toxin. And your liver is like one of the main sources of detoxification of not only estrogen but numerous negative compounds. So drinking alcohol on a regular basis is, as far as testosterone goes, and estrogen is probably one of the worst things to do, especially in large quantities. I mean, there's statements about having a shot like once in a while or like a beer here and there, but even then, I still don't think that I don't see the benefit of that, particularly if you want to increase androgens or lower estrogen or lower cortisol or anything along those lines.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so just like kind of clarify what you're saying or add to it. Uh, our liver is one of the main, or really the main avenue of detoxifying estrogen. And we always have some amount of estrogen circulating. And alcohol via endotoxin and some direct effects of the detoxification of alcohol directly can damage the liver, but also just impede its function. It depletes B vitamins in particular, and a depletion of B vitamins or deficiency of B vitamins also decreases the liver's ability to get rid of estrogen. So, and of course, gut health is also a major component of detoxifying estrogen, where if you have, there are particular bacterial issues that can prevent estrogen detoxification as well.
Yeah, and the colon.
Right. And so alcohol is, between those couple of effects, really one of the best ways to increase estrogen and prevent our ability to get rid of estrogen, which is not a good idea if you're trying to support your metabolism and pro-metabolic androgenic hormones.
Yeah. There's one area it's semi-tangential about alcohol, but I think it's important to bring up. A lot of people really enjoy alcohol, and especially after a stressful day or something like that. And it's because it does have some GABA properties where it has a relaxing effect, and it helps people to unwind, and it helps people to fall asleep after they're high strung. So I think both of us understand that, and we understand that it's sort of a coping substance. And so I think both of us think there's better options to coping with things than alcohol. I don't know if you want to talk about them here, or if you want to, we'll talk about that at another time. But yeah, I think like the alcohol component, I mean, even with family members I've seen and friends and people that I work with, it's like a pretty ubiquitous substance. And it's just because it helps people chill out after like a stressful day, or something happened with relationships or monetary, whatever it is. It just helps them to unwind, take their mind off it. And for a lot of people, like even particularly for my dad, he can't sleep sometimes. Drinking a bunch of wine will put him to sleep for a couple hours. But again, there's research, and this will be a leeway into sleep, but there's like a lot of research showing that while you do go to sleep, you're not able to reach the reparative parts of your sleep if you're under the influence of alcohol. So there are other things to use to help you relax, as well as strategies that would decrease requirements on alcohol. And so I think for both of us, it's important to recommend that is a coping thing for a lot of people. And we get that. It's just, as far as ideal health goes, it's just not ideal. And especially with the goal of increasing testosterone or anything like that. And I guess another indication people use it for is socialization, help with
Right.
anxiety. So
Yeah, and we will later on in these episodes, we'll talk about stress as well, and so I think we'll leave some of that discussion for then, because stress is a huge component, separate from alcohol, just a huge component when it comes to hormonal health. But yeah, in the future we'll definitely have to talk about like those sorts of coping strategies and also how they can lead to certain addictive tendencies and what could maybe be done in place of those things. But big picture, doing a lot of the things that we're discussing just from the physiological level will help a lot. And a lot of it, as you said, also has to do with lifestyle sort of things, or work, or monetary stress. And those things are all legitimate concerns and understandable. And there are better coping strategies that again, we'll discuss it another time. Maybe we'll discuss a little bit when we talk about stress as well in this series.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's not, by no means is it a simple recommendation for a lot of people. But what you're basically saying is, yes, decreasing alcohol is a good idea, but we understand that that can be much easier said than done. I definitely know quite a few people who have been trying for a long time to kick their alcohol habit and have not been able to very successfully. So, yeah, maybe some other strategies we talk about in terms of sleep and stress and all of that will help too.
Yep.
So you had mentioned endotoxin as being a major contributor to impaired liver health, in which case it's probably the primary, like largest factor that's going to cause liver issues. And then additionally, it directly increases aromatization, directly increases estrogen, the conversion of hormones to estrogen. And because of that, things to decrease endotoxin are going to be really important. Some of this comes back to the digestibility that we talked about before, where a lot of the harder to digest foods are going to be more likely to feed harmful bacteria. And so sticking to the easier to digest foods will help to decrease the endotoxin load. Sometimes this also has to involve addressing gut health more in a more targeted way, which we've talked about before, different strategies there, antimicrobials, different ways to support digestion, whether that's increasing bile production or stomach acid production or the migrating motor complex, gut motility. So a lot of the big picture things should help there, but it's worth mentioning that eating a lot of irritating foods or having a lot of gut inflammation or endotoxin production is going to pretty dramatically increase estrogen and decrease androgenic hormones. And it's one of the major factors decreasing metabolism as a whole. So it's definitely worth considering there.
Yeah. And I just want to go through real quick, just to give context. Endotoxin is, and we've talked about this before, basically a lot of things. Endotoxin is a component of gram-negative bacteria cell wall. So basically their protective covering. And that stimulates the immune system pretty strongly in a negative way, but it also has direct negative effects on mitochondrial function. It like directly impairs energy production. So the body, it's like a pretty ubiquitous and significant stressor in the absence of other toxins going on. Say you had eating the most organic, clean diet ever. If you have a bacterial infection going on in the gut, that's going to be a huge component that's impacting the liver directly. And so while we talk about endotoxin specifically, there's a bunch of other bacterial components from different bacteria, from gram-negative bacteria. It's sort of just bacterial toxins in general from the gut are a problem.
Or fungal toxins too.
Or even fungal or parasitic, any type of microbial issue in the gut can have pretty drastic negative effects on people's health. And they tend to develop in chronic health states or drinking excess alcohol over time, or any of the chronic health states, or excess stress will modulate basically the gut fauna and flora. And then you can get sort of pathogenic overgrowth. Sometimes you could pick it up from food poisoning, and you could get it from using antibiotics, from a whole host of things, any pharmaceutical drugs, too much of that, poor diet over time. Like, for example, going on a heavy soy plant-based diet can really wreck people's guts. So all of that can lead to these issues that linger even after you change, that can be allowing these bacteria to produce toxins from the food that you're eating and then damage your liver. And so even if you're doing the most organic, low stress lifestyle with whatever, if you still have a problem going on that developed after going through a stressful state, you can still have an issue. And while we use endotoxin as like the primary one to focus on, because a lot of the research discussed endotoxin specifically, there's other bacterial components that are pretty much just as damaging, and they directly attack mitochondrial energy production, a lot of them, or enzyme systems within the body that metabolism is dependent upon. And that will stimulate immune response that will upregulate cortisol production and upregulate like humoral immunity, which is what we don't really want to upregulate that too much. You see that a lot with autoimmunity and chronic stress. And then that also will increase estrogen, and it will lower the thyroid function and the gonadal functions, because it's basically like the system all works together. The body's saying we're under stress, we have a problem. And then the primary directive is managing that problem rather than managing reproduction or optimal hormonal health or brain function or things like that. The body gets geared towards dealing with this problem overall. So we want to eliminate those types of underlying problems. We want to, if you're having gut issues, things that could be addressed. And I think it's really important to realize that a lot of these things, especially even in our experiences, they developed not only for ourselves, but for other people after periods of chronic stress that involve trying, for example, really low carb diets or really high fiber diets of plant-based foods. Those have been issues. So
if you enjoyed that clip, you'll definitely want to download the free Energy Balance Food Guide. The Energy Balance Food Guide will help you determine exactly what to eat to optimally support your metabolism and help you lose weight, improve your digestion, get amazing sleep, boost your energy, and so much more. The food guide makes it extremely easy to get started with a bioenergetic approach to optimizing your health. So head over to jfeldmanwellness.com/guide to download your free Energy Balance Food Guide.